Matthew, good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too, Jenny.
The first of a three-part report is out. It singles out 5 ATF officials. What's the headline you see coming out of this first report?
Well, first off, what this does is it shows, it gives us a roadmap for who is actually responsible for Operation Fast and Furious. I'm still reading through it. It is a lengthy report. I've just come across a part in which the genesis of the idea of gun walking came from the senior level officials in the Department of Justice. But the top level thing here is that we now have names of people who congressional investigators believe are to blame for Operation Fast and Furious and for allowing guns to walk into Mexico. And now it's going to be a question of, is the administration going to hold these people accountable? They all still work for the Department of Justice or the ATF in one form or another. Is the administration going to hold them accountable? And if so, why has it taken this long?
Yeah. And they named Bill Newell, which is no surprise. He was in charge of the ATF's Phoenix office. He really is criticized in this report. They talk about how he has a history of using these reckless gun-walking tactics, and that he was a major promoter of the strategy that was developed in Fast and Furious.
Exactly. And then another thing that this report really is going to, I think, as people get a chance to dig through it, it is, like I said, it's a very lengthy report, and it's just coming out today. But as people get a chance to dig through it, is going to be how this administration, the Obama administration, unlike the Bush administration, the Obama administration was more than open to the idea of gun walking. They welcomed it. They devoted resources to it. There are memos that Dave Ogden, who was the Deputy Attorney General at the beginning of the administration, was sending out that encouraged new tactics and all sorts of things like that. And that's the kind of stuff that this report's going to do. Now, moving forward, we're going to see, and there's going to be 2 more reports.
Right.
And those 2 reports are going to be where the senior Justice Department and Obama White House officials are going to be. Their roles will be detailed and what they've had to do with this.
And it really does. It takes what we've heard, testimonies over the past several months via ISIS committee, and it really highlights what so many people have been saying about the ATF for so many years. We're talking about a rogue agency, and when you look inside of it, there was all kinds of problems about who wanted to do what when they knew about it.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is that most revealing about this, and this is the same for pretty much everything that the Obama administration has handled, is that there's a massive cover-up going on here. There's no doubt about it. There are, look at how long and how hard people in Congress have had to fight for what little information they have at this point. They still don't have they have merely a fraction of what the Inspector General internally has. And of course, Inspectors General tend to be okay with investigations, but clearly not as their clear interest usually with an Inspector General is they want to protect the agency to an extent. They're not as critical as a congressional investigation. Here's the thing. There is, the fight for this information, this administration has made this an election year issue. This is an election year issue. This shows how this administration has failed to hold people accountable who have done wrong, and how they've failed to follow through on President Obama's grandiose election campaign in 2008 promises of transparency.
And it really does highlight that. And then, you look at the polls, majority of voters, they disapprove of President Obama using the executive privilege to keep these records and these documents from Congress.
And here's the thing. I think in the end, what's going to end up happening is that this is going to continue. The momentum behind this is going to continue to grow. People are still going to keep pushing for answers. I think we're going to see people held accountable. I think we're going to see eventually the fight for the documents will come down. I think. The White House's argument for executive privilege is pretty flimsy at best, and I think as the congressional investigators move forward on this, we're going to get there. But I mean, to get to this point where they can write a report of what happened, and it's still not all inclusive because they still don't have all the information because the White House has been hiding it from the American people.
Well, how about the new evidence in that report? The tragedy, no doubt, about Agent Brian Terry's death and the cover-up there, but how about the ATF trying to cover up the information from the Mexican government about the murder of the brother of the Mexican state attorney general?
Yes, the brother of Mexican state, the name of the state is Chihuahua.
Right.
Attorney General Patricia Gonzalez, her brother Mario Gonzalez was killed with Fast and Furious weapons. When that became apparent to ATF agents, and this was actually a month and a half, I believe, before Brian Terry was killed. And the emails from November 2010 show that the ATF agents were were talking internally between themselves, between each other, saying that they didn't want to release that information. They wanted to keep it from getting out, not only to the Mexican government, but publicly or anyway, they wanted to just withhold that from everybody because they didn't need to know that it was an ATF operation that armed the killers of her brother.
You know what's interesting, too? It took 18 months to put this report together. We still don't have a report from the Inspector General. And it sure will be interesting to see if and when we get it, how these reports compare.
Yeah, and that's going to be something to look at. I mean, I literally have no idea what to expect from this Inspector General, but we do know that according to Trey Gowdy, that it's going to be coming out in weeks, not months, is what he told the Washington Times very recently. So we'll see what happens and what's in that report. But the other thing is that this is the first in a series of reports, right. and ultimately, and by the way, this report does put lay out some of the responsibility with regard to Lanny Brewer's role in this, and other senior Justice Department officials, but this one focuses on what happened down at the ATF level, and then the next report will focus on what's happened at the Justice Department level, and then the third report will focus on the stonewalling and essentially obstruction of justice on the part of Attorney General Eric Holder and President Barack Obama. The president has asserted executive privilege. He's used secrecy powers, and it appears to be a flimsy reason. Mm-hmm. And eventually we'll get to that point where this will be fought out in a courtroom, and a judge will decide, is this good or is it not? That's where it's going.
Yeah,
so.
And all indications are that's what this report is leading to. A civil lawsuit against the Attorney General.
Yeah, and that's already in the works right now. The House is putting together a legal team, and they're putting together and that's mentioned in the report that the House of Representatives is putting together special counsel basically for seeking what the civil contempt of Congress citation.
And I think a lot of people will take away from this what you were talking about earlier. No accountability anywhere within this administration when it comes to this scandal.
None at all. There hasn't been any accountability. Like I said, all 5 of those people still work for either ATF or DOJ, and above all else, I mean, there's nobody's been fired. Of course, the U.S. Attorney for District of Arizona, Dennis Burke, did resign, but that wasn't played out. That wasn't a resignation as a result of Fast and Furious at the time. Now it is. Now the administration has changed their tune, and now they claim, oh well, he's been resigned. No, nobody's been held accountable because of this. Nobody's been fired. Nobody's lost their job. Nobody's been so much as had a pay cut or anything. Nothing has happened to any of these people as a result of this. They've just been transferred into new jobs, into new places to continue doing whatever it is they do for the Department of Justice or for the ATF, and ultimately that's what's the rub with voters. I mean, here's the thing, is that people around this country want to see accountability from an administration, and they're not seeing it right now. It's not there. This has been going on for 2 years. This is the administration's fault. They've had every opportunity to fix it, and they don't.
And, Ken Melson, he's one of the 5 singled out, former head of the ATF, and, he met behind closed doors with the investigators, and talking about how, quote, my view is that the whole matter of the department's response in this case was disaster. But he never shut it down, and that's what this report highlights.
Right, and that's in the report. They mention the fact that Mr. Melson has cooperated with the congressional investigation. He has. You have to give him credit for that, but he didn't shut down the operation when he. It's becoming more and more apparent that he, as well, was aware of what was going on, and that's the thing, is that ultimately, I mean, you've got a lot of people here that didn't stop this, that could have and that should have, and
Absolutely.
they didn't.
Well, we'll see what happens with the second report. That should be coming out, they say, pretty soon. The third report, they're saying, is going to depend a lot on the availability of those documents.
Right. They can't write that third report until President Barack Obama lifts his finger off these documents he's hiding. So.
Well, don't hold your breath.
Well, I think a judge might make him do it.